Remember when someone saying they wanted to be an influencer maybe got a bit of an eye roll?
Oh, definitely.
Like,
Yeah.
is that really a job? Don't you just, like, take photos?
It felt very casual, didn't it? Sort of a hobby that just blew up, maybe.
Totally. But, wow, looking at the source material we have, the reality now is just, it's miles away from that, isn't it?
Years away. Yeah.
What seemed like just sharing stuff online has become this huge, like, really rapidly growing industry.
Absolutely massive. And it's evolved so much that, governments actually had to step in. Remember back in 2009 in the U.S.,
Vaguely, yeah.
there was that FTC thing, and sometimes people called it the mommy blogger law. That was a really early sign that, okay, this isn't just friends recommending things anymore.
Right. Money's involved.
Yeah.
Formal deals.
Exactly. And that means you need rules, guidelines.
And that's pretty much what we're digging into today.
Mhm.
We've looked hard at the sources. You brought stuff from Forbes, the BBC, McKinsey too, to really get a handle on what influencer marketing actually is now, how this whole thing works, why brands are pouring money into it, and honestly, why it's really time we took it seriously.
Yeah, the goal here is to give you that clearer picture, cut through maybe some of the noise or skepticism that might still be out there,
Sure.
and just pull out the key insights. Some of the facts are pretty surprising, actually, about the real scale of it all.
Okay, let's start right there then.
Yeah.
The scale, the impact. Because it is way bigger than I think most people realize. How did something that felt so informal turn into this, like, multi-billion-dollar thing?
Well, it's been quite the evolution. It really grew out of genuine online communities, didn't it? People building real trust with followers around specific things they cared about.
Okay.
And as those audiences got bigger, brands obviously saw an opportunity. They realized, hey, we can tap into that audience, tap into that trust.
So it started small, maybe free products.
Probably. Freebies, maybe a small payment. But it's scaled up fast.
Yeah.
And, anytime serious money changes hands for recommendations that affect consumers,
Regulation followed.
regulation has to follow, yeah.
And the numbers today, I mean, they're kind of staggering. The sources said the industry was valued at, what, $21.1 billion in 2023?
$21.1 billion, that's a huge slice of the global marketing spend.
Yeah.
And it's not slowing down. The forecast is potentially reaching $143 billion by 2030.
Wow. Okay, that's not just growth. That's
exponential.
yeah.
It tells you this isn't some passing fad. It's becoming like a fundamental part of the economy.
So it's huge. It's getting huger.
Yeah.
But the big question is why? Why are brands investing so much? What makes it actually work?
Well, a big piece is the return on investment, the ROI.
Okay.
The sources point to brands getting back, on average, about $5.20 for every single dollar they spend on influencer marketing.
$5 back for every $1 spent. That's impressive.
That gets attention in a marketing department. Right. Compared to other channels, that's very compelling.
And a lot of that seems tied to consumer trust, which I found really fascinating in the sources. It said 71% of consumers actually trust influencer opinions.
71%.
Yeah.
That level of trust is just gold.
Mm.
Especially, with younger people who grew up seeing ads everywhere and are maybe a bit more skeptical of the traditional stuff.
Right.
Influencers, the good ones anyway, have spent time building real connections. So when they recommend something, it feels different, less like a hard sell.
More like a friend suggesting something.
Exactly. More like someone you actually follow and relate to. And that creates social proof for the brand. Their audience feels more comfortable, more trusting.
It really makes sense. It's not a faceless company shouting at you. It's a person integrating something into their life or their content.
Mm-hmm.
And for the brands, it sounds incredibly efficient too.
Oh, hugely efficient. Think about how hard it is to build an audience online from zero. It takes so much time, so much effort. Working with an influencer gives a brand instant access. Access to an engaged, often very specific niche audience that influencer has spent, months, maybe years cultivating.
Saves them a ton of time and money compared to doing it themselves.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's clearly more than just snapping pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Who are these influencers really, and what does the actual job look like?
Well, the basic definition is someone with a decent social media following who can actually, influence how their followers behave.
Influence buying decisions or where they go or
even what they think about something, yeah. And it's not just humans anymore, which is kind of wild.
Right, the sources mentioned animal influencers.
Which are often adorable, yeah.
But also AI influencers, like Lil McKella. with 3 million followers.
3 million, yeah. It just shows how broad this idea of influence is becoming and the different ways it's being created and consumed.
Okay, but sticking with the human ones for a sec,
Yeah.
the sources break them down to sizes, right? Based on followers.
Yeah, these tiers. You've got nano, which is under 10,000 followers. Micro, that's 10K to 50K. Then medium, 50K to 100K. Macro is over 500,000. And then mega, that's over 1 million.
You'd think brands would just go for the megas, the huge names.
Intuitively, yeah.
But the sources really highlighted the power of the smaller ones, nano and micro. Why is that? Why would brands prefer them sometimes?
Well, cost is a massive factor. A nano might charge, say, $500 to $2,000 for a post. A micro, maybe $2,000 to $8,000.
Okay.
Compare that to a macro or a mega, you could be looking at $45,000 easily. Or, 6 figures, even more for top celebrities per post or campaign.
Right. So for smaller businesses especially.
The nanos and micros are way more accessible, much more affordable.
And the audience is probably more niche too.
Exactly. That's the other big advantage. These smaller influencers often have these incredibly engaged communities that are super passionate about something really specific.
Like vintage scents or vegan baking or, I don't know, competitive dog grooming.
Whatever it is, yeah. So a brand in that niche gets laser-focused reach. Very little waste. And honestly, the content from smaller influencers can often feel, well, more real, more authentic, less polished than, say, a huge celebrity campaign.
Makes them seem more relatable.
More relatable, more trustworthy sometimes, yeah.
Okay, so how do the deals actually work then? How does the money change hands?
2 main ways discussed in the sources.
Oh.
Brand deals and affiliate commissions.
Right.
Brand deals are pretty straightforward. The influencer gets paid a flat fee to create some content featuring the brand's product or service.
And the rates vary wildly, I guess.
Hugely. Like you said, could be 3, 4, 5 figures for non-celebrities. Jumps way up into 6, even 7 figures for the really big names.
The sources gave examples like Alexa Collins getting over $1,000 just for an Instagram story, or Tyler Chanel, who's a micro-influencer, 13K followers, getting at least $100 per story. It really scales.
It scales massively, yeah. The other way is affiliate commissions.
Okay, how does that work?
So the influencer promotes a product, but they use a special tracking link or maybe a unique discount code.
Gotcha.
If a follower clicks that link or uses that code and buys something, the influencer gets a cut, a percentage of the sale.
And the potential earnings here can be pretty significant too.
Well, yeah. The sources had some eye-popping examples. One influencer making $5,000 a month just from affiliate links.
Huh.
And another one, get this, 275,000 followers reportedly pulled in $700,000 in 6 months just from brand deals.
$700,000. Okay. That definitely pushes back against it's just a hobby idea.
Completely. It highlights that this is serious business, which, brings us back to the actual work that's involved. It's not just hitting post.
Yeah, exactly. Because those kinds of numbers imply a lot more effort. The sources basically described influencers as being like mini agencies.
Pretty much. They're often the creative director figuring out the concept.
Right. And the talent starring in it.
And the editor putting it all together, the location scout,
Finding the right backdrop.
the community manager replying to comments, building engagement, the product curator deciding what fits their brand.
And ultimately the salesperson driving those clicks or purchases.
It's a lot of different hats. It's a demanding job. The BBC piece mentioned Chloe Homan, an influencer, working like 80 or 90 hours a week.
80 to 90 hours, okay. That's definitely not a casual side gig.
Not even close.
So considering all the money, the ROI, the actual intense work involved, why do you think this whole career path has faced so much, I don't know, skepticism, dismissal as not being a real job?
Well, part of it is definitely that initial perception we talked about. Social media seems fun, maybe frivolous to some.
So anything done on it must also be frivolous.
Sort of that logic, yeah. And maybe there are some other biases at play, too.
Like what?
Well, the industry is often dominated by young women, isn't it? And historically, women's work, especially in new or less traditional business areas, has sometimes been, well, discredited or not taken as seriously.
That's a fair point. Age bias, too, maybe? Dismissing what younger generations are creating?
Could be part of the mix. And then there's the whole issue of fakeness that comes up.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
Like staged content or buying followers.
Exactly. That stuff definitely contributes to the skepticism.
Yeah.
Overly filtered photos, hyper-promotional posts that just don't feel genuine, and Yeah, the unfortunate cases of people buying fake engagement. It can make the whole space feel less trustworthy.
But the sources also seem to suggest that audiences are getting smarter about that.
Oh, for sure. People can often tell when something feels forced or inauthentic, and that kind of content just doesn't perform as well anyway. There's actually a lot of pressure now from the audience for influencers and brands to be more real.
Which is interesting because it seems like many influencers are actually leaning into the business side even more seriously now, treating their platforms like actual companies.
Absolutely. They're becoming really savvy entrepreneurs. They're not just waiting for the next brand deal.
They're diversifying,
Totally. Spinning off their own product lines, creating courses, making investments, building something more sustainable, more long-term than just sponsored posts.
like Grace Beverly with her clothing brand.
Yeah, huge success. Or Zoe Sugg, one of the YouTube originals, right? Books, beauty products, homeware. She's built an empire.
They're building real businesses off the back of their influence.
Exactly. Seeking more security, more control beyond just collaborations.
And we're even seeing companies start to formalize this role internally.
Yeah, that was interesting in the sources. Companies like Mattel, Slice, actually hiring influencers onto their payroll as salaried employees?
What's the thinking there?
Well, it suggests some brands see huge value in having that kind of creator inside the company. Someone who can consistently produce content that feels organic, or at least more organic as part of the marketing team itself. Maybe more reliable than just one-off campaigns.
The whole landscape just keeps shifting, doesn't it? How did the pandemic affect things?
Oh, the pandemic was a massive accelerator. Huge.
For digital everything, basically.
Exactly. Lockdowns, people staying home. Everyone shifted online, shopping, socializing, everything. The sources mentioned like 13 million people in Latin America shopped online for the first time during just one period.
Wow, 13 million new online shoppers just there.
Yeah. So with that massive surge in online activity, where do people look for what to buy?
Influencers.
Their role in guiding those online purchases just became even more critical. There was a survey mentioned 34% of people said they'd actually bought something on Instagram because an influencer endorsed it.
34%. That's significant.
Yeah.
The pandemic really cemented their place in that digital path to purchase.
Definitely did.
And looking even further ahead, the metaverse. It's everywhere in discussions now. How does influencing fit into that, this sort of 3D digital world?
Well, the metaverse is pitched as this next evolution, right? More immersive 3D spaces online. And people are already spending real money there, a surprising amount.
Yeah, the source mentioned $54 billion on direct-to-avatar sales, virtual stuff for our digital selves.
54 billion. Virtual clothes, accessories, brands are already experimenting heavily. Gucci sold a virtual bag on Roblox for more than the real thing cost.
That's wild. Nike's doing virtual sneakers. Chipotle had a virtual restaurant.
Yeah, on Roblox, you could do tasks in the game to earn codes for actual burritos in real life.
Okay, so brands are definitely exploring it.
And influencers are right there, too. Snoop Dogg did music videos in the metaverse. He has his Snoopverse in the Sandbox platform.
So virtual concerts, virtual product placements.
Sponsored experiences within these 3D worlds, avatar influencers maybe becoming even bigger. The potential seems, well, almost limitless. It's a whole new frontier.
Okay, so if you're a brand looking at all this, the current landscape, the metaverse coming,
Yeah.
what are the big opportunities with influencers and what are the main things to watch out for? The risks.
Well, the opportunities we've covered seem clear. Building trust, getting that human touch, especially important for big, maybe faceless corporations.
Right.
Tapping into those engaged audiences. And the ROI tracking can often be clearer than, say, a big TV campaign or a traditional celebrity deal.
But it's not all smooth sailing. There are definitely risks.
Oh, for sure. There's that authenticity paradox we mentioned. The bigger the brand, sometimes the harder it is for a paid post to feel genuine.
People might just see it as an obvious ad.
Exactly. Then there's saturation. The market is getting crowded. It's harder to stand out, especially if you're a smaller brand competing against bigger budgets.
And just managing it all.
Right.
If you're working with dozens of influencers.
That can be a huge operational challenge, keeping track, ensuring consistency, managing relationships. It's way more complex than dealing with one ad agency.
Yeah.
And probably the biggest risk is reputation. If an influencer you partner with messes up, says something offensive, gets into a scandal,
That reflects badly on your brand.
instantly,
Yeah.
even if the brand did nothing wrong, that association can be really damaging. So vetting influencers properly and ongoing monitoring, it's absolutely crucial.
So the takeaway for brands really seems to be, yeah, this is powerful, massive potential, but you need a smart strategy. You need to choose partners carefully, and you really need to understand the risks involved.
It's not plug and play. It's a complex space that's always changing, requires real thought and adaptation.
Wow. Okay, so we really went from that initial just taking pictures thought
Yeah.
to uncovering this incredibly complex, multi-billion-dollar industry with its own rules, its own economy, its own stars.
We've seen the huge economic numbers, the surprising power of trust, the actual, multifaceted job influencers do,
Right, wearing all those hats.
and the really strategic thinking brands need to apply to make it work for them.
So maybe for you listening, as you're scrolling through your own feeds, how does this change how you see things? Are you maybe more aware now of the business humming along behind the posts?
Yeah. Do you find you trust recommendations from influencers you follow? And maybe take a second to think about why you trust them or why you don't.
And looking forward, as our digital lives keep expanding, moving into places like the metaverse, and these lines between, personal content and entertainment and commerce just keep getting blurrier. What does the future of work and maybe marketing look like for all of us? How are you going to navigate this world that's becoming more and more influenced?